Hello students, welcome to Legacy IAS Academy. In today's video, we are going to discuss about the continent Africa. What is the important geographical features of Africa, important lakes and important rivers, as well as other major geographical regions. So first of all, to give you the brief background about the Africa, it is the second largest continent on the earth with over an area of 30.3 million square kilometer. To put it into perspectives, the entire area of India is about, we can say, 3.2 million square kilometer. So Africa is, we can say, from India's size almost 10 times bigger than it. Second, it is bounded by, if you look at the water bodies around Africa, this is the map of Africa. So if you look at the north, in northern side here, this is your Mediterranean Sea. Then in the western side of Africa, you have the Atlantic Ocean. On the eastern side, you have the Indian Ocean. And again on the northeastern side, this is another important water body, that is the Red Sea. That is why Mediterranean Sea, Red Sea, Indian Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean, these are the water bodies surrounding the Africa from all the sides. Not only that, if you look at the central part of Africa, and this line if you see clearly here, this actually Africa is divided into two halves by 0 degree latitude, that also is referred as the equator. So almost divided into two half by the equator. If you look at the dimensions, again it is about 8,000 km from the north to south, and similarly it is roughly 7,400 km if you measure it from the east to west. Its northern extreme is Al Ghiran point, that is the northernmost point of Africa near Al Abayad point in Cape Blanc, in a country that is called as Tunisia, as you can see in the northern part, and the southern extremity is Cape Agulhas, that is situated in the South Africa region here. So these are some basic things that we have to remember. Now if you look at the Africa and division of Africa, we can divide the entire African continent into total 7 geographical zones. The first is the Sahara Desert in the northern part of Africa. Then further to the south of Sahara, you have the Sahel region. Then you have the highland region, that is in the eastern part of Africa, referred as Ethiopian highland. Then we have a grassland to the south of Sahel, both to the north and south of equator, one of the largest grassland in the world actually, that is the savanna grassland. It is an example of a tropical grassland. Then we have equatorial rainforest. We just have discussed equator is passing through Africa. So around the equatorial zone, you have the lush green equatorial rainforest. Then African Great Lakes, again you will find in the eastern region of Africa, and further to the south you have the southernmost part of Africa, that is called as Southern Africa. Now we will try to understand about each of these regions one by one in detail, but before that we can take a look at the physical map of Africa. So as you can clearly see from this map, if I divide it into mountainous areas, the major mountains of Africa we can highlight, that is Atlas mountain. Further to the east we have Ahagar mountains. Then further east we have Tibesti mountain. So Atlas, Ahagar and Tibesti, these are 3 mountain ranges of Africa. As discussed before, this northern region is one of the actually the largest desert in the world, Sahara desert, and also nearby you have small deserts such as Libyan deserts, you have Nubian desert. Then as you can see, this region is Sahel region, and to the south of Sahel you have equatorial rainforest and the savanna grassland. If you talk about southern part, you have 2 major deserts here. One is Kalahari desert and other is the Namib desert. And the Rift Valley that we have discussed, the Great Rift Valley of Africa, is stretching all the way from the Red Sea further to the southernmost edge of Africa. We have Great African Rift Valley, East African Rift Valley and the West African Rift Valley. And this is the Ethiopian highlands that we have talked about. And also you have the longest river of the world, Nile River, is present in the continent of Africa as well. And as we have discussed, this equator is dividing Africa into northern part and southern part. Now first take a look at the Sahara desert. So as you can see, the entire north, east and western part of Africa is covered by Sahara desert. In the west, it begins from Western Sahara, which is a small country, and then further to the east it extends all the way up to Egypt, Sudan and even up to Eritrea. That is what we can say, from the coast of Red Sea all the way to the coast of Atlantic that is the expanse of the Sahara Desert. Now, some points if we try to understand about Sahara Desert. First of all, obviously covering an area of about 8.5 million square kilometer. This we can understand that India's area is 3.2 million square kilometer. So, almost 2.5 times larger than the size of India is the overall extent of Sahara Desert, which is an example of also hot desert. If we talk about its contribution in Africa, it makes up almost 25% of the entire continental areas, and 4 distinct kind of feature you will find in Sahara Desert, that is ergs, regs, hamadas and oases. What are these? We will discuss in a while. Now, Sahara's animal and plant communities, obviously it is very dry area, there is a lack of water, so they have adapted to this extremely dry condition. And 2 very good example of this we can look here. One example is a rat like animal, as you can see from rodent, basically you can see from here, called as jerboa. So, jerboa is living in Sahara Desert, and to adapt to this desert condition, dry condition, it produces highly concentrated urine that minimizes the water loss from the body. Similarly, the other photograph you can see is of the camel. This camel is called as dromedary camel, and this dromedary camel conserves water by changing its body temperature. So, it does not sweat as the day gets hotter, because otherwise what will happen if temperature is not regulated, evaporation losses will be there, transpiration losses will be there, and that will actually decrease the overall water available for these animals. That is how the animals and plant also they have been surviving here. Now, the desert features that we have discussed, which is erg. Erg covers almost 20% of Sahara, and as you can see from this photograph, these are nothing but desert made up of fine sand particles. Fine sand particles means what you can say, these are nothing but the large desert area covered with huge mounds of sand dune, and that sand dune stretches for hundreds and hundreds of kilometers, and even sometimes they have a height of almost 300 meters, that is 1000 feet. So, such sandy desert that you see is referred geographically as erg. Large quantities of salt also you will find in such deserts, which is used both for industrial purposes as well as for use of the food as well. Second geography, as we have discussed, is regs. Regs are plains of sand and gravel, as you can see from this particular picture, that makes up 70% of the Sahara. That means also we can say the reg is the largest part of the Sahara, the largest region of the Sahara, and the gravel can be black, red or white. They are the remains of the prehistoric seabeds. Prehistoric seabed means earlier time the sea level was quite high and used to cover the entire reg region of the Sahara. Later on, during the phase of cooling, the sea level receded, and that caused this landmass to come above the sea, and this seabeds and riverbeds currently are observed in the form of regs, which are now waterless. Coming to the third important physiographical region of Sahara is hamadas. Hamadas are nothing but, as you can see from this particular picture, they are kind of elevated plateau like landmass which can go as high as 3353 meter. And as discussed a while ago, the mountains of Africa, such as you have Atlas mountain, that is stretching from southwestern Morocco to the northeastern Tunisia. Then you have the Tibesti mountains of southern Libya and northern Chad, and then third is the Hagar mountains in the southern Algeria. All these mountains can be considered as part of Hamada landform or Hamada region of the Africa. And last is oasis. All of you must have heard about the term oasis, and as seen in this particular picture also, oasis is a small to large size water body that is surrounded by desert from all the sides, and it is made up of springs, wells or irrigation system, and about 75% of Sahara's population lives in oasis, obviously because humans cannot survive if the water is not available. It is a vital requirement for our survival. So, it makes up only 2071 square kilometers of the entire Sahara desert, of desert's vast area. We have discussed that the desert is almost 8 million square kilometer. Out of 8 million square kilometer, only 2000 square kilometer is where you have the oasis, and this 2000 square kilometer holds 75% of Sahara's population. So, this is the region of desert, and that is why this kind of feature you will observe here. Now, coming south of Sahara, this red region that you see, shaded area that you see, is referred as Sahel. So Sahel, you can see, is extending almost to the same extent as Sahara, but slightly to the south of Sahara. So let us try to understand about this Sahel region as well. So it is a kind of semi-arid landmass, and it forms a transition zone, because in northern part of Sahel region you have the Sahara desert, and in the southern part you have the grassland, which are called as savanna, we have discussed. So it is a transition zone between desert and grassland, and made up of flat barren plains that stretch for roughly 5,400 kilometers across Africa, starting all the way from Senegal to Sudan in the east. Also in this region, due to flow of certain river, you will also see the formation of fertile delta. The most important of those being the Niger river delta, as you can see from here, that is going out into the Gulf of Guinea. So Niger river delta is one of the fertile region, and also Niger is the longest, one of the longest rivers of Africa. Now due to the rainfall that happens here, and also due to the availability of river water, the Sahel region sometimes also is covered with greenery, green vegetation develops here, and during the rainy season especially, when it is often quickly harvested if farmers or consumed by animals. That means the vegetation of Sahel is not permanent like rainforest, it grows only for rainy season and then it is quickly consumed, and after that again it becomes, as we have discussed, a kind of flat barren land. Now unfortunately Sahel region, especially the fertile area, is rapidly becoming desert. Basically intense desertification is being observed here, and especially in last one decade this region is suffering from problem of drought, desertification, deforestation, as well as intensive agriculture has also removed the upper layer of soil fertility. This process is entirely process that is called as desertification. Now if you look at the tree of these trees of the Sahel region, two major trees you will see, baobab tree and acacia tree. Now both of these trees are having deep root system, so that they can absorb water from deeper levels of the surface, and are among the most common trees that is found in Sahel. Not only that, you will have a special kind of prickly grass called as cram is found in Sahel region, and this is very important grass, because most of the cattle that you will see in this Sahel region are dependent upon the cram grass. The major cattle being the Jebu cattle called as Bos indicus. Actually in this region there are tribes, and these tribes are dependent on cattle rearing for survival and for sustaining their livelihood, and those cattle in turn are dependent upon the cram grass found in Sahel region. So these are the examples of the trees that you will find in the Sahel region. This we have discussed, that is your baobab tree, because actually baobab trees are also called as bottle tree, because as you can see the shape is bottle like, and you can see the trunk of this tree is very wide and large, while the leaf part, branch part is very small. This is because if the leaves are very dense or branches are very thick, evapotranspiration losses will be higher. So the tree actually conserve water in its trunk during the this dry season, and then uses it for its survival till the rainfall again happens or water is again taken. Again you have the grasses that they have discussed, cram grass and the acacia trees, three major kind of vegetation you will observe in the Sahel region. The next region that we have talked about is the Ethiopian highlands. As you can see, this map is the representation of the Ethiopian highlands that is found in the eastern part of Africa between Red Sea and the Indian Ocean. Now Ethiopian highlands began to rise somewhere about 75 million years ago, largely due to the eruption of magma or a magmatic eruption, and later on a dome formed. This dome was later split as Africa's continental crust pulled apart. We have discussed many times before that currently African continent is undergoing a process that is called as continental divergence, where on the eastern side you have a plate called as Somali plate, and on the northwestern side you have plate that is called as Nubian plate. So Nubian plate and Somali plate are separating out, and due to the separation a rift has developed here, which is called as Great Rift Valley system. And today this Great Rift Valley system is cutting off the entire Ethiopian highland from southwest to the northeast. Africa's 80% of Africa's tallest mountains, including the highest peak of Africa, that is your Mount Kilimanjaro, is a part of your Ethiopian highland. And in this Ethiopian highland, very unique kind of animals you will find here. For example, a species of fox, that is red fox, you will find here. Then unique species of goats and monkeys are something that you can clearly see are observed here. Next region is Savannah region, which is one of the largest region of Africa, and it is found, as you can see, the equator is passing through here. So both to the north and south of equator, this Savannah region, that is a kind of tropical grassland, is developed here. So if you talk about this particular Savannah grassland, they cover almost half of Africa, that is 50% of the Africa's area, which is more than 13 million square kilometer. These grasslands make up most of Central Africa, beginning south of the Sahara and Sahel and ending north of the continent's southern tip, as we have discussed in the map. Now, out of the entire Savannah region, one of the most well-known popular tourist destination also is the plain that is called as Serengeti Plain in the region of Tanzania and Kenya. Serengeti basically translates into the endless plain. That means if you are standing anywhere in Serengeti and if you turn your gaze in any direction, what you will see is the endless kind of plain, similar kind of topography, grasslands, and here and there you will have the small to large size trees depending on the availability of water, and brimming up with a diverse number of the animal species. So Serengeti is a vast undulating plain stretching almost 30,000 square kilometers from Kenya's Masai Mara Park, as you might have heard about, which is a most famous park if you want to do wildlife safari in Africa, to Tanzania's Serengeti National Park, that is the extent of the savanna grassland. Now, as we were discussing about the wildlife of this grassland, it has the highest concentration of large animal species, and the animal species that you can easily find here are lions, you have hyenas, you have the wild elephants, zebras, giraffes. These are the large animals that you will find here. Apart from that, more than 1 million wildebeest, they travel in a circular migration following seasonal rains across the Serengeti plain, which is again one of the most popular tourist destination or tourist tourist attractions in the Serengeti National Park. Their grazing and trampling of grass allows new grasses to grow, while their waste helps fertilize the soil. So in one way, what we can say that the circular migration that is carried out by the wildebeest, these are also responsible for regeneration of the grassland, Sahara grassland. The other important region of Africa is equatorial rainforest. As we have discussed, it is most of Africa's native rainforest actually has been destroyed by development, agriculture and forestry. And today 80% of Africa rainforest is concentrated in very small area, that is in the Central Africa, especially along the Congo river basin. So this is the region that you can highlight on the map of Africa, where you have the 80% of Africa's rainforest. So as you can see, again this is almost around the equatorial zone between 5 degrees north to 5 degrees south of the equator. Now obviously rainforest is a kind of tree, this forest that develops in area where you are having high temperature as well as high rainfall. So since it is close to equator, obviously it is having one of the highest temperature in the world, and also around the equator every day you will have a kind of rainfall which is called as convectional rainfall. Convectional rainfall happens because of the heating of the water body. The water evaporates, then further condenses and comes down in the form of rainfall. So daily for 2 to 3 hours you have this rainfall. So high amount of temperature, high value of temperature and high amount of rainfall is responsible for the generation of this rainforest. Now if we talk about the diversity of this rainforest, it is estimated that around 8,000 plant species are found or at least have been documented in this area, out of which more than 1100 species are endemic. Endemic means it is only found in this equatorial rainforest of Africa, nowhere else on the earth. And only 10% of the plants in Africa's rainforest have been identified till now. That means still a lot of effort is required to explore the uncharted territories of Africa's rainforest. Now obviously these rainforests are also brimming up with a wide number of animals, and major animals that you will see here are chimpanzee, then we have eastern bongo, you have mountain gorilla, which is one of the largest mammal on the earth after blue whale and the elephant. Then you have okapi, Nile river monitor lizard, African grey parrot. Then we have Goliath beetle, you have gaboon viper. These are the major species. Apart from that, if you take a look at the numbers, it has a rich variety of animal life, and a 6-kilometer patch can contain up to 400 bird species, 150 butterfly species, and 60 species of amphibians. So, this is the example of the rich biodiversity of African rainforest. The next we have is African Great Lakes. So, actually we have discussed a while ago that along the eastern part of Africa, due to the splitting of Africa into Somali plate and Nubian plate, a rift valley system has developed. Now, here and there, due to the rainwater, the rift valley is filled up with water, and these water that has accumulated temporarily has given rise to formation of African Great Lakes. So, the Great Lakes are situated in the Great Rift Valley of Africa. Now, what are the major lakes here? You can clearly see on the map here, starting from north to south, we have Lake Turkana, we have Lake Albert, Lake Kyoga, Lake Victoria, the largest lake in the Africa. Then we have Lake Kivu, Lake Tanganyika, which is the longest lake in Africa. Then Meveru, Bangavelu, Lake Malawi, Lake Chilwa, Lake Rukwa, and Lake Kariba. Kariba Lake is a temporary, this actually an artificial lake that has formed due to the construction of a reservoir. So, these are the major lakes spanning all the way from north to south along the Great African Rift Valley. Now, some points we talk about the Great Lakes are located in total 9 countries that surround the Great African Rift Valley, and as the African continent, same thing we have discussed. This is the line along which the Africa is separating out. That means this part of Africa is moving in this direction, this part of Africa is moving in this direction. So, this geological process created some of the largest and deepest lake in the world. So, nothing new, all this point we already have discussed in the last slide. Obviously, the Great Lakes of Africa, because of the availability of abundant water, is also full of biodiversity. For example, we talk about fish. It includes the 45 kilogram, one of the heaviest fish, that is called as Nile perch, and the smallest fish that is only 2.5 centimeter, that is cichlid, that is found. So, 100 pound to almost 1 inch size fish is found in the Great African Rift Valley. Migrating savanna animals such as wildebeest use the lakes as a watering holes. The Great Lakes have about everything from rainforest to savanna plant communities. However, invasive species, especially like the water hyacinth, that is also one of the major problem in India. Actually, in West Bengal especially, water hyacinth has actually invaded almost all the major water bodies, and that is why it is also called as a terror of Bengal. So, water hyacinth, then we have papyrus, they have begun to take over the entire shoreline, endangering animals and plants, because once these invasive species start to spread over in the water bodies, what happens, they cover the entire surface, and due to this, what happens, the biological oxygen demand suddenly increases. That means due to the rotting of all these plants, they consume this oxygen, and thus the oxygen concentration of water decreases, that causes threat to all the aquatic life that is surviving there. In this region, actually you will find the tallest peak of Africa, that is almost 5,895 meter height. This is your Mount Kilimanjaro. Mount Kilimanjaro is located in country that we have discussed called as Tanzania, and actually Tanzania also you have the Serengeti National Park. So, that is Mount Kilimanjaro here. It is an example of a volcanic mountain that has formed due to the volcanic eruption, and also most interestingly, Mount Kilimanjaro is also the highest or tallest free-standing mountain in the world. Free-standing mountain means it is not part of any mountain range. This peak is a single mountain in itself, and around this area you will not find any other mountain. So, tallest free-standing mountain in the world, highest peak of Africa, Mount Kilimanjaro. The last region of Africa is southern part of Africa. So this you can see on the map is southern Africa, that makes up that is made up of countries such as Angola, Zambia, Malawi, Mozambique. Then you have South Africa, Zimbabwe, Botswana, Namibia. Then some landlocked countries such as Lesotho and Swaziland. So this is the southern tip of Africa, which is surrounded by both Atlantic Ocean in the west and Indian Ocean in the east, which Cape Town actually is part of this southern region of Africa. Not only that, island of the coast of eastern Africa, that is Madagascar, also is considered as part of the southern region of Africa. So if we talk about this particular region, it is dominated by a craton. Craton is basically a very older rock system, rock shield that has formed in the earlier time period of the earth, that is almost 2.6 billion years old. The rocky features of southern Africa includes plateaus and mountains, and the major mountain range that is present in South Africa you can see on the map here, extending from South Africa, then passing through Lesotho, then passing through the entire region of Pretoria in South Africa, and a small part of Swaziland also has this Drakensberg mountain. But largely we can say more than 95% of this mountain range is part of the South African country. So that is the region of Drakensberg mountain, and this picture that you can see, this map here you can see, this is the area that is covered by Kaapvaal Craton, which extends over South Africa, Botswana and Zimbabwe, three major countries of the southern Africa. In this region, two major deserts you will find. One is the Namib desert and other is the Kalahari desert. So basically here along this coastline of Africa, a cold ocean current flows through, that is referred as Benguela current. So due to the drying or desiccating effect of Benguela current, that is one of the reasons why you have formation of desert here, because the cold current is passing through, evaporation will be less, that means the cloud formation will be less, that means rainfall will be less. Plus here you will find some special type of plant species, succulent plant species such as karu, that is Nama karu and succulent karu. These are found in this region of desert as well. If you look at the biodiversity of this region, the Cape Floral region of South Africa, Cape Floral region is around this area, the southernmost tip of South Africa. Again, it has access to both Indian Ocean in the east and Atlantic Ocean in the west. So this region around Cape Town, the Cape Floral region of Africa, is one of the richest area for plants, not only in the African continent but also in the entire world. The Cape Floral region, though area wise if you take into consideration, it covers then less than 0.5% of Africa, but in this 0.5% of Africa's land mass, it actually accommodates nearly 20% of the entire continent's flora. Flora means we are talking about the plant life. And here the king protea or Protea cyanoides as it is called is South Africa's national flower, is also found here. This is the Protea cyanoides or king protea, the image that you see here. So this is the Cape Floral Kingdom, the part of Cape Floral Kingdom, and also the national flower of South Africa. If you take a look at the animal species, again a similar kind of animal species that you see in the savanna regions are found here as well. And these are elephants, meerkats, then you have giraffes, wildebeest, great whales, shark as you can see from here. Then you have impala, lion, rhinoceros, guinea fowl, buffalo. So all the major animals you can see that are found in the Cape Floral region as well. Now in last we can discuss about the major rivers of the African continent. So obviously the first of all we can talk about is the longest river of entire world, that is river Nile. Nile river, as you can see from this map here, actually originate from Lake Victoria. Lake Victoria is a lake that is spanning across three countries of Africa, Kenya, Uganda and Tanzania. And Lake Victoria is source of one of the stream of river Nile, that is called as White Nile. The second stream of river Nile, as you can see, originate from Ethiopia. And in Ethiopia, the lake is called as Lake Tana. And then the White Nile and Blue Nile join together somewhere in Sudan and then further flows to the north toward the Mediterranean Sea. The length of this entire river is 6,650 kilometers, and longest river of the world as well as Africa obviously. It passes through 4 countries, Uganda, South Sudan, Sudan and Egypt, discharging its water into the Mediterranean Sea, and the volumetric discharge of river Nile is around 2800 cubic meter per second. So, these are some important points about Nile river. Next important river that we have to talk about is Congo river. Now, Congo is second longest river of Africa after Nile, and if you take a look at the course of river Congo, as you can see, the Congo river originates from somewhere sources a Chambezi river, that is another sources there in northeastern part of Zambia. So, as you can see, this is a river that originates from here, and from Lake Tanganyika you have one stream that originates from, and both these streams then join together in DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo, and then flows in by the name of Lualaba river. And then further, as it enters into the Republic of Congo, that is where it is popularly known by the name of Congo river. The length is again 4700 kilometers, that means roughly 1.7 times longer than the Ganga river of India, and it flows through Republic of Congo and Democratic Republic of Congo, and finally, as you can see from the map, near a city called as Moanda, it discharged itself into the Atlantic Ocean. And this river actually is kind of again arc shaped river. If you take closer look here, this river actually is an arc shaped river, first moving to the north and then moving to the south. So, somewhere we can say it is very similar, the flow pattern of the river is very similar to a river that you might have heard about called as Mahi river in India, which originates from Vindhya range, goes to the north, and again along the this Aravalli ranges, it turns to the south before entering into Gulf of Khamba. So, similar kind of flow pattern we see here also. The third river, which is also the third longest river of Africa and one of the most fertile region of Africa, is situated along the Niger river. Source is Guinea, as you can see from here. This is a country along the western coast of Africa called as Guinea. Again, it flows in an arc-like shape, as you can see. Similar kind of flow pattern as we have seen in the case of Congo river. Flows through Guinea, then you have another country that is Mali, then we have Niger, then we have Nigeria. Then discharges its water into Gulf of Guinea from the Niger Delta, Nigeria. Niger Delta was at one time also known as Slave Coast, because almost half of the slaves that were exported to the from Africa either to the North America or to the South America during the time of slavery came from this region. So, this region is also called as Slave Coast. Again, a very important fact you should be knowing about. So, that is the third longest river. The fourth important river is Zambezi river. Zambezi river, as you can see from this particular map here, it originates somewhere from this, we can see country that is Democratic Republic of Congo, and then you have border of Angola. So, from the border of DRC and Angola, that is the origin of Zambezi river. Actually, the exact place, the source region of this river is called as Mvini Lunga, that is to the northwestern part of Zambia. Length is about 2574 km, and then as you can see, after coming out, the river flows through Angola, then flows through the Democratic Republic of Congo, then Angola, then it flows through the entire region of Zambia, and then you have Victoria Falls here. The Victoria Falls, one of the most notable fall of the Africa, is situated on the Zambezi river, and then you have Lake Kartaba, and further Kariba, Lake Kariba is there where Kariba Dam has been constructed. Then you have Zambezi river where you have Lake Kahora Bassa, and finally passing through the Mozambique, it discharged itself into the Indian Ocean. About river Zambezi, one other point you should know about, it is actually the longest eastward flowing river in Africa. Longest river of Africa is Nile, but it flows from south to north, while this river is flowing from west to east, thus the longest eastward flowing river of Africa. And last river which we can discuss about is the Orange river, that is a major river of South Africa. And as you can see from this picture, the Orange river originates from a landlocked country is there, landlocked by South Africa from all sides, called as Lesotho, and we have discussed the Drakensberg mountain which passes through South Africa and also passes through Lesotho. That is the origin point or source of this Orange river. It flows through a distance of almost 2092 km, basically from east to west, and it flows through two countries again, Lesotho and South Africa, and after flowing for a distance of almost 2000 kilometers, as you can see this is the course of river, it discharged itself into the Atlantic Ocean. Now one of the most important point about river Orange that you should know about, that along the course or bank of river, alluvial diamonds are still recovered, and several diamond mines operate in the lower reaches and around the mouth of river Orange. So that is all about the major rivers that you will find in the African continent, and that is all about the major geographical regions and important points you should be knowing about the Africa in the mapping series of Africa. Thank you very much.